Underwood, and today we're going to explore the Weeks Bay Pitcher Plant Bog to find out what makes this habitat such a unique and fascinating place. So you can see that I'm standing here in the bog, and what we are looking at are the white top pitcher plants. So pitcher plants in general are what we call carnivorous, meaning that they are able to capture mainly insects, and they capture them and are able to actually digest them within their leaves. And so, as the name implies, white top, you can tell that they're white tops because they have this beautiful white color on top. This pretty venation, and this is the leaf of the white top. The flowers look like red upside down umbrellas. The leaf is the part that actually captures insects. And how does it do that? Well, when you look at a pitcher plant, they have this hood on top. The hood does not move. It helps keep water out of the main part of the pitcher. But on the hood, you find nectar that insects are attracted to, and you also find downward pointing hairs. And those downward pointing hairs help direct insects down into the tube. Also, on the front of the pitcher is what we call the lip. And if you were to feel the lip is very waxy and slippery. So if an insect lands here, it may lose its footing and slip down into the pitcher. Now, most insects are not able to crawl up the walls of the inside of the pitcher, and so they can't escape. And then the pitcher plant produces digestive enzymes, kind of like your mouth does when you start to eat. It produces those type of protein enzymes that break down the soft parts of an insect. Now, one of the cool things about pitchers and insects, so there's some insects that have adapted to using the pitchers and they don't get caught by the pitchers. And so, for example, in this pitcher plant, when I look down into it, I can see a moth. And this moth is in the genus Exira. So that is an adult moth in the pitcher, and it spends most of its time just sitting inside the pitcher, and when it's ready to mate, it'll find a mate, and they will mate within the pitcher plant itself, and they'll lay eggs in the pitcher, and the little caterpillars or the larvae will live in the pitcher. So if we look at some of these other pitcher plants, you can see here that this hood is slumped over. There's a caterpillar of this Exira moth that lives within the pitcher plants, and it eats part of the inside of the plant, and that's what makes this hood droop over. They will also pupate, which means they spin their cocoon inside of the pitcher, and they will turn into this adult moth. Another insect that is adapted to using the pitcher is a type of grass nesting wasp. And so if you look at a few of the pictures here, you'll see grass. You see, here's another one sticking out of these pitcher plants. So this wasp makes nests within the plants, and the nests are made out of this grass, and they will put some type of insect that has been paralyzed. They'll paralyze an insect, put it in there, and then lay an egg on that insect. And so when its little larvae hatch from the egg, it actually has something to eat. So I think pitcher plants, I like to say that Mother Nature is weirder than science fiction sometimes, and I think that's what we find within these bogs. So I've taken a picture that is from last year. You can see it's dry and it's brown, and I cut it, and I wanted us to open it to see if there's any parts of the insects that are left over. Because when the insects are being digested, the soft parts get digested, but not the hard parts, not the exoskeleton. So not the wings, not the legs, sometimes there are antennae left. So why don't we open this? I'm going to cut it, and we'll see if there's anything left from last year. a very skilled entomologist can look at parts that are left over and tell what the plant has been eating, what insects the plant has been eating. So there's not much here at the top. You can see, looks like a few wing parts. Maybe of little moths or other flying insects. Let's see if there's anything. Oh, look. Lots of tiny little bug parts, exoskeleton, some wings, the hard outer body, even maybe some like head parts. It's like a big piece of a bug. So you can see that these pitcher plants are really good at capturing a lot of insects, and the majority of the insects are broken down, just not those little hard parts. A lot of that looks like maybe pieces of ant bodies. They're really good at capturing ants. They're also really good at capturing those pesky love bugs that none of us like because they hit our cars and make all of our cars dirty.
Hello, welcome to Weeks Bay Squeaky Sneakers. We are on site at the Pitcher Plant Bog. And I want you to know that these are very protected species, so do not come here and pick one yourself. This was picked by one of the biologists who's studying it today. So these are a special species that is protected, and we're going to learn how to draw it. So one of the first things I notice is, let's talk about the shape. Is it wide at the bottom or wider at the top? What do you think?
It's wider at the top.
Wider at the top. Is it all one color?
No.
No. Does it have a hat? Does it have a funny bonnet? Does it have beautiful markings? So this is what we're going to do. So what I want you to do, and yours doesn't have to look exactly like mine. Go ahead and take your cardboard. Go ahead, Catherine, get ready, get your board. And I'm gonna try to draw upside down again because that's the way you can see and you can see. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start is a little bit narrower at the bottom, right? And then go ahead and draw 2 lines and coming up and getting wider. Maybe just do that much so far. See what I've done? It's kind of the opposite of a tree, because if you think about it, a tree is bigger at the closer to the ground, isn't it? So it's interesting. So this is smaller where it's coming up and it gets wider at the top, maybe so it can eat its lunch properly. Do you think that could be? So when we come up here, what I want you to do is go ahead, I'm looking at this edge right here. On the top up here where you have it nice and wide, good job. That's fine. That could be tall enough, Catherine. Now watch how I do this next shape, honey. I'm going to look at this little edge here. It looks like a little up. Can you give me a little marking, a little curve down like that? All I'm doing is drawing the edge. And then when I come up and I draw the top, look, it's got a waist. Look, it's got tiny right here and then it gets bigger at the top. So I'm going to go, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up, go in, and come up out. And then it's roughly in and out. I kind of drew this one like it looks like popcorn or a snapdragon, but they all come in shapes and sizes. It's narrower here. It has a ruffled edge, almost like a beautiful lettuce or a type of a flower. And I'm not sure exactly what these markings are. To me, it looks like veins, like little tiny veins, the way it's got it. So watch how I'm going to do this next. I'm going to start at the bottom. And can you just draw me some stripes coming up like this? I'm just going to draw some stripes coming up. And they don't have to be straight lines at all because they're kind of like veins. And when I'm looking at it again, sometimes they cross over. So I don't know if it almost looks a little bit like a spider web, but they're not straight lines again here. They're just little shapes. When the nature artists are working out in nature, the first thing they do is study the colors and the shapes and the repeating patterns. So here we go like that. Okay. Now that you've learned to draw one, can you draw me several more? Do they often grow together in a group? Have you noticed that, Evie? Okay. Okay, so when you're ready, go ahead and do another one. Maybe over here. It starts out narrow. Okay, you're going to do the bottom edge. You're going to come in and come out. Whoop, 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 loop, loop, loop at the top. Come in and out. You can do the markings on that. Oh, and if we were looking at one, here's an artist trick for you. If we're looking at one sideways, does sometimes one of them grow sideways? So I'm looking at it sideways. It's going to be narrow at the bottom, gets wider at the top, and then look, this one comes down like this. It looks like it has a little lip sticking out. Like it look, and then it comes up like this. Look, woo, and the top is like that. So here I drew one sideways. See how I did that? So if you're looking at the plant sideways, so in nature, they're not all standing in a row for a school picture, are they? They're just growing wild and wonderful like nature does. So that's what we've got so far. Good job. Good job. What else is down at the ground? Down at the ground, is it just like pavement or sand? What would I find along the floor covering here? Would I find maybe some little grasses? You could draw you could draw something at the bottom, other little grasses. What else? Who do you think might be tempted to come study? Who would like to come and land on this because it's so beautiful? Maybe they can smell it. Is it true they can smell it? Is that right, my biologist? Is there a scent or something that attracts them to it? And the markings maybe?
Yeah, so a lot of the insects are attracted to the markings when the sun shines through these beautiful patterns. It looks like little windows to them. And we know that insects love to go to the bright kind of window spots in your house, and they do the same thing here. There's also a lot of nectar on this hood that attract insects, especially like ants, but you'll even see butterflies that don't get caught sitting along here getting nectar.
What did you just say?
Oh, butterflies.
Look who's coming to see mine. Look who's coming to see mine. And what path are we on here? What butterflies come migrating through here? The monarch butterfly, all kinds of butterflies. Maybe a little fly. What would happen if a little worm came up here? What if a little worm came up here? Would that happen? Do they sometimes find worms inside? Or crickets? All kinds of things. So you can go ahead and maybe have some things flying around it. Do you know how to do a butterfly, Catherine? Watch. This is what, look, you just start out with a little shape like that for the body. And we're gonna be an artist today instead of being a perfectionist. And whatever I draw on one side, watch, Catherine, look, if I go like this, bloop, bloop. If I do 2 bloop bloops on one side, I'm going to do the same on the other side. Bloop, bloop. Okay? The butterflies come in all shapes and sizes, so don't worry about making it a specific one when you're just starting out to be a nature observer, as long as you're paying attention to what is attracted to the Pitcher Plant Bog. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, once you have that, we're going to take our brush, okay? I'm going to, and remember I told you the last time in Squeaky Sneakers, if you can just get a watercolor set, and if you can, and you usually want a paper towel nearby, all I'm doing right now is starting out by getting the colors ready. I'm just going to get it wet, add a few drops of color into it. I think I'm going to use, it looks like I'm going to use a lot of blue and purple and maybe some red. Oh, I like this one color right here. I'm going to start with my brush and maybe just fill in the color, and I'll have to try to, is it okay if I go down? I'm going to have to, because it's hard to do watercolor standing up. I'll hold it up briefly, girls, so you can see, or else it's going to drip all over me. So I'm going to fill in the stem. Pick a color for the stem, girls, like this. You can go blue, you can go purple, you can go with green. So whatever you think the stem is. Okay, so the whole idea here. Now what we did today is we drew with a crayon, and now we're adding watercolor, and the crayon serves as the resist because of the wax in it. So even if I come over here, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that I could paint the inside. If I came over here and painted, if I painted this plant right here light, you're still going to be able to see the pattern inside because the crayon is still going to show through. See how it looks like that? See? So I'll take some of that color off, but you can still see my lines. Another way I might do it, and I've got kind of a thick brush here, but I think I can do it. Sometimes I might just come along with my crayon lines, and maybe I'm just going to go ahead and add those pattern like this. I might just come along and now I think it looks like a guitar with a curly head, so I might do something like that. I still want to leave those white spots in there. I'm not going to paint them. I think I like this one better than this one, but that's how you learn from art. Isn't that right, girls? Okay. So if I had a butterfly in here, you could add the colors of the butterfly, whatever you want, imagine. And I'm drawing mine quickly so you have plenty of time to learn on your own. And I didn't bring all the right size brushes here in the field, but I'm working with the big brush here. Okay. And if you don't have a purple, you know, you can always take a little blue. Look, I'm going to show you a trick. If I wanted some blue in here, and I thought, wait a minute, that's not really blue. Could I add a little red on top? And I could make a purple, see? So if I mixed a little blue and red, there's a little color theory for you. And then I would have to come in here and add the stripes. Now this would help if I were using a smaller brush, but you get the idea. Something like this. The very last, yeah, let me try one of those. Yeah. Don't you love it when you have biologists who are also your painting assistants? Okay, so if I had a smaller brush, like I said, if I could, look, see it with a smaller brush, I could come back in here and add the pattern. But one of the neat things that I like about, look out here, turn around, show them what we're looking at. There is so much green wildlife. I know that this pitcher plant is not just sitting out there by itself. I'm going to add some, because I want to today, I'm going to add some greenery just to show that along the forest floor or the area here, whatever you call it, lowlands, the Pitcher Plant Bog. It's a bog. I know that Miss Angela's over there making sure I pronounce it right. But I'm going to add some greenery because I love how there's so many new things here. See, now I want a bigger one for what I'm doing. Sometimes students always grab for the biggest brush, but the best brush for the job is the one that works for the space you're working in. So that's my answer, and I'm sticking with it. So the very last step is going to be this. Look, guys, and I'll let you do this in a minute when I have some newspaper. You watching, Catherine? Watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to come in here, and this is something, because some of them have polka dots on it. Watch what I'm going to do. I took a little bit of paint on my brush. I'm going to go like this. Watch. I'm going to take my finger. I've got some wet paint on the end of the brush, and I'm just going to hit down gently, because I just want to show. This is just kind of an artistic impression. Sometimes because there's actually dots on the stems of the pitch bog plants. And sometimes it's just because I want to just, to me this looks like the energy in the air. Look at this poor little butterfly wants to be colored. What color is this one? This little butterfly wants something. Remember, I told you last time that if you want to leave white in something and you're working on watercolor paper with watercolors, you need to think ahead and plan ahead where you want the white to be. See? So as I'm painting this, if I want these little circles to be white, maybe I'll trace around them and then go back in and just outline the spaces in between it, just like that. So this is something like what yours might look like. This is one when I had a little more time in the studio. The main idea is to remember that, oh, here I did it the other way. Here I drew them wider at the bottom. But when you brought it to me, it was actually narrow at the bottom. So this is the more legitimate one because this one had the live model. So let's stick with this one. Narrow at the bottom, coming up almost like a triangle or an ice cream cone. It gets bigger at the top. Thank you. It's not a puppet. It's one of my little friends. If I could put it back, but in the meantime, it'll go into study for the biologists. Don't come and pick them. Come and take a picture. Come and draw. Thank you for being in. Bye-bye.